In our world today, it's a huge question. When does a lie stop being just, a lie and become something you can actually get sued over? That's what we're breaking down today. The legal line between free speech and some very, very costly falsehoods. It all really starts with a case that pushed this question to its absolute horrifying limit. After the Sandy Hook shooting, Alex Jones started pushing this monstrous lie that the whole thing was a hoax. And the result? Well, as one lawyer put it, the families who were grieving were literally hunted, and Jones was profiting from their pain. The case against Jones, of course, ended with a massive verdict against him. And that brings us to the core question for today. We all know lying is wrong, right? But when does it actually cross the line and become illegal? What's the tripwire that separates just talking from causing real, actionable harm? Okay, so let's dive into how the law actually looks at this. It's all built on a pretty simple idea, really. Lies become illegal when they cause measurable harm. And there's no better or, frankly, more tragic example to understand this than the defamation lawsuits brought by those Sandy Hook families against Alex Jones.
And the consequences for crossing that line? Wow, they can be financially devastating. Juries ultimately ordered Jones to pay nearly $1.5 billion in damages. I mean, that staggering number really shows you just how seriously the law takes false statements that completely destroy reputations and inflict just unbelievable real-world suffering. So how did the courts even get to a number that big? Well, they used a specific tool in their legal toolbox, one that's designed to fight exactly these kinds of harmful lies. So let's break down the anatomy of a lie by defining this core legal concept, defamation. In the eyes of the law, defamation basically has 4 key ingredients. First, it has to be a false statement of fact, okay, not just someone's opinion. Second, it has to be published, which just means it was communicated to at least one other person. Third, the person who said it has to be at fault, at least negligent. And fourth, and this is the big one, it has to actually cause real harm to someone's reputation. Let's make that a little more concrete. Imagine an office scenario. Alice tells her coworkers that Bob hired someone to commit a crime. Okay, this ticks all the boxes, right? It's a false statement presented as a fact, it was published to other people in the office, and it absolutely harms Bob's reputation. That's a textbook case of defamation right there. Now, some lies are just so toxic that the law doesn't even make you prove you were harmed. This is a special category called defamation per se. With these kinds of statements, the court just automatically presumes your reputation took a major hit. The damage is just assumed. And as you can see, the law has 4 classic types of these really nasty statements. We're talking about falsely accusing someone of a serious crime, saying they have some kind of loathsome disease, making false accusations of sexual misconduct, or saying something that would just absolutely cripple their career. But here's where it gets really complicated. The rules of the game change, and they change dramatically depending on who is being lied about. And this brings us to what's called the public figure problem, which creates a much higher bar for getting justice. So why the different standard? Well, it all goes back to this landmark 1964 Supreme Court case, New York Times versus Sullivan. The court basically argued that for public debate to really work, to thrive, it needs some breathing space. The idea is if people were terrified of being sued for every little mistake they made while criticizing a public official, they might just shut up and not speak at all. So here's the crucial difference, right here. If you're a private citizen, you only have to prove the speaker was negligent, basically that they were sloppy and didn't do their homework to check if it was true. But if you're a public figure, a politician, a celebrity, you have to prove actual malice. That means you have to prove they either knew they were lying or that they just showed a reckless disregard for the truth. And let me tell you, that is an incredibly high bar to clear. And this standard didn't just pop up overnight. It was built piece by piece over decades. Sullivan set the stage back in '64. 10 years later, a case called Gertz extended that rule to cover all public figures. And then in 1988, in a famous case involving Hustler magazine, the court said that even if a public figure sues for emotional distress over a parody, they still have to prove actual malice. Now, it's really important to remember that this American approach, with this high wall protecting speech about public figures, it's not the only way to do things. In fact, if we just hop across the border to Canada, we find a legal system that draws the line in a pretty different place. You can see the key differences right away. In Canada, there's no public versus private distinction. Everybody just has to prove negligence.
Canadian courts can also award general damages for harm to your reputation without you having to prove a specific financial loss. And instead of that American idea of breathing space, Canada has developed a defense called responsible communication for journalists. Okay, so we have covered a ton of legal ground here, right? From Alex Jones to the Supreme Court to Canadian law. So let's bring it all home and focus on the main takeaway, really understanding that precise line between speech that's protected and speech that becomes illegal harm.
So if you remember anything from this, make it these 5 things. Number 1, defamation is about false facts, not opinions. 2, truth is an absolute shield. If it's true, you're safe. 3, some lies, like accusing someone of a crime, are just automatically seen as harmful. 4, fame has a price. Public figures have a much harder time winning these cases. And finally, number 5, in our world today, being part of a digital mob that's repeating a lie can actually open you up to legal trouble too.
And that leaves us with a huge final question. For centuries, this area of law has always been this balancing act, right, between free speech and protecting your reputation. But now, in this new era of deepfakes and AI-generated lies and digital mobs that form in an instant, well, the old rules are being tested like never before. The real question for all of us is, where are we and where is the law going to draw the line next?